Welcome. My name is Jill. I am reading my memoir called Free Will. Welcome back to the many of you that have been following along with me as I read my story chapter by chapter. So happy that you're enjoying this and coming along for the ride. For those of you that are new, please check out my channel. Just click on my profile there in the description, or click on playlist or videos, and you can check out any of the videos. You can go all the way back to the beginning, so you can listen to the whole book with us. Today we are on chapter 44. Last video we kind of were going over how I was learning to reconcile all the things that had transpired in my life. And so that was really great. A lot of healthy things happening. And now we're going into a section where, well, I'm not sure we get to the crazy part yet, but sometimes as I'm rereading these a little bit before I do the video, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm crazy. I need to. Anyway, I won't give it away. No big deal. Okay, so let's just jump right into the chapter and I'll stop talking. Well, some days my words just won't come. Thank you for being patient through that. Okay, chapter 44. 2.5 years had passed since leaving California. I had learned a lot, healed a lot, and accomplished great things. But even though I had come so far, there was no denying that I was bored and lonely, feeling uninspired. I had made the brave and bold decision to leave my religion at great cost. I had chosen to get a divorce and move away from where I loved living. Had I listened to my intuition, my heart, and my internal guidance, only to move to this faraway place, so unfamiliar and so unwelcoming to me, just to make a living at something and feel blah? I did have my dad and Marianne close by and was very grateful for that. I would have dinner with them once a week or so. We saw each other at work and talked on the phone all the time. I, of course, had my kids around. They're always sweet and we have really great relationships, but they were both at ages where being with people their own age is how they wanted to spend their time. I don't blame them for that a bit. I didn't want to hang out with my parents when I was a teenager. I too had my sisters, Sandy, and my formerly stepsister, Cindy, to talk to regularly. They are my closest friends, but they both lived in California. I am immensely grateful that I could talk to both of them almost every day. Both of their constant and generous support has been cherished and incomparable to me. But they are very far away. Oregon was feeling less and less like my home. I felt I had been sequestered long enough. I was finally ready for more. I was longing for connection with my sisters, with friends or community, or maybe even companionship. It didn't seem to be here. There are indeed numerous amazing reasons to enjoy living on the Oregon coast. The sunsets on the coast are spectacular almost every night. When my dad and I first opened our kite store in Depot Bay, I would be working long hours up on the ladder, creating displays and hanging kites, and the sunset on the ocean across the street would take my breath away. The sky was orange and purple like I'd never seen. There were unique cloud formations and enormous waves crashing on the jagged rocks. The commute to and from work every day was saturated with world-class, gorgeous coastline. But after almost 3 years of adjusting to being a single mom and successful entrepreneur, I realized that this wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to meet people. I wanted to feed my soul with a big life full of depth and adventure and freedom. I wanted to be creative. I wanted hope for something greater that I knew was on the horizon. My intuition told me there was more for me. and I was ready to go looking. I didn't want to keep running the store. I was restless. I didn't want to stay here. But how would I tell my dad? I was afraid of disappointing him, filled with the dread of letting him down. This sounds familiar. I don't do that anymore. I had to be honest with him, whether it disappointed him or not. He was actually great about it. He and Marianne came up with the perfect plan to allow me to sell my half of the store. We worked it out rather quickly, so within 3 months of telling him, I found myself out of the store and packing boxes. I was moving back to California. I was going home. Leaving Oregon didn't even feel like a decision. My intuition spoke so loud and clear. I was now free and living my life as I chose, but intuitively I knew there was more for me. Yes, I knew I was risking a lot giving up the store that I'd worked so hard on, but everything in me said, go, it's time. Chalk that up to now being able to hear the voice inside me telling me my true feelings. Now I allowed that voice not only to be heard, but granted it permission to guide me. My daydreams took me to the sunshiny places I'd grown up. Barefoot toes digging in the sand, riding a warm wave, and feeling connected. Like James Taylor sang as he daydreamed about going home in Carolina in my mind, I had gone to California in my mind. I dreamt of where I felt was home. I longed for it and imagined it like a comforting refuge from what felt to me like a foreign, dispiriting land. Okay, chapter 45. I head back to Cali. I thought that I was going home. San Clemente was this beautiful place filled with beauty and fun and memories. I thought enough time had passed that I could go back to where I was a native, where I felt a familiar sense of belonging. Saying goodbye to Dad ripped my heart out, but I was filled with gratitude for the time I'd been able to share with him while I was here. As much as I'd miss him, I knew I was ready to go home. We planned to rent a U-Haul trailer for bringing what belongings we didn't sell in our garage sale. After moving a total of 4 times while in Oregon, I kept sifting out what I didn't need or want with each move. I wanted this to be an easy move. Easy. Haha. The day we were scheduled to leave, I called U-Haul to reserve a trailer. When I'd moved up to Oregon, I'd rented the monster big U-Haul truck, but by now I had simplified down to what would fit in a 5x8 trailer. They asked for what kind of a vehicle I had and if it had a tow kit. Tow kit? I think I may have overlooked something really important. Don't you guys put that on when you rent the trailer to me? That gave them a good laugh. Luckily, there was a boat store a couple blocks away who said they could install a towing kit that day. 5 hours and over $600 later, we hit the road. I realize that this is the most boring, mundane story, but I have to say, I felt like through these years, I had hit every single motherfucking bump in the road that I could possibly find. This was one of many costly, time-consuming pains in the ass that kept coming at me for years. It's like when you go out seeking your freedom, you have to really motherfucking want it because life will throw sand in your face, trip you up, and kick you in the balls till you're begging for mercy. Okay, I just had to get that off my chest. So we were off and running, but this time it was just my son and I taking this long trip, and Skitchy, our 15-year-old cat. My daughter, now 20, had moved and settled in at the northern tip of Oregon. So just Riley and I once again loaded up our belongings and hit the 5 freeway all the way back to Southern California. We were both so elated to be headed home. To his excitement and thrill, Riley had recently begun driving, so he was happy to share the driving responsibilities with me. We took our time, stopped at nice hotels, and made a mini vacation out of the trip. At Riley's request, stopping at every In-N-Out burger we passed on the way was on the itinerary. I had brought along a few things in the car to occupy us as we drove: games, music, books. I included one of our family's favorite games, Catchphrase. We had forgotten we had it because we had audiobooks and lots of good music to entertain us along the way. One of the nights we stayed in a nice little hotel in the desert. We ordered room service, rented a Will Ferrell movie, and went swimming. The next morning, we loaded up our suitcases back into the car. I had to move some stuff around in the back seat to make our cat Skitchy as comfortable as possible. Riley was in the driver's seat and had already started the engine. I was in the back seat moving things around when I heard a sound. It sounded like ticking. Tick, 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 tick. I asked Riley if he heard it. Tick, 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 tick. He turned down the music on the stereo. Tick, tick, tick. Yes, he heard it too. I said, turn off the car engine. Tick, 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 tick. It was sounding louder and getting faster and faster. Riley looked panicked at me and he turned and bolted out of the car, running away from it and yelling at me to get out. I jumped out and ran too. We could still hear the ticking, and then suddenly we heard wah wah, chick, 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 chick. We knew that sound. We looked at each other and started laughing. It was the electronic catchphrase game that I must have activated when I was moving stuff around. So besides the bomb scare and having to get a tow kit installed, we had a smooth, uneventful trip. The plan was to stay in Hacienda Heights, where my sister and her family live. They were going to put us up until we found a place of our own. They were so welcoming and accommodating. Being with family felt so right. My sister Sandy, her husband John, and my niece Karina made space for us and made us feel so comfortable. I will forever be grateful to have such wonderful people in my life. They all treated us with such tender care and thoughtfulness. Being in California felt right. When you live your entire life in the perfect climate, seeing sunshine and smiling faces every day, it's quite an adjustment to be away from it. It was like a breath of fresh air coming home. It's not that Oregon was bad, it just hadn't felt like home. Here back in SoCal, it felt so much more like me. I tried to spend as much time as I could down in San Clemente, even though it was an hour drive south of my sister's house. As I searched for work and a home, Riley would meet up with some of his old friends. It was surprising to him how many of his old friends were not around anymore. Whether they'd moved away or he just couldn't work out getting together with them, it was a bummer. He had been thinking he'd be busy all the time catching up with old pals. It wasn't like that. And of course, none of his JW friends would be in the picture. We knew that. But I could see that he was more than a little disappointed. We pep talked each other, reasoning that it would take time for us to get comfortable again. I started advertising my design work and applied for a few jobs as well. I was having sticker shock at the price of housing. I, of course, had thought all that through and researched it before I came, but actually going to look at tiny condos that cost double or triple what I had paid in Oregon for a nice size house with an ocean view was discouraging. I had lived in a big, beautiful custom home the last time I lived in California. It was going to be different this time around. I did get to start attending my favorite Sixth Sense class again, which was amazing as ever. I just fed my need to connect with community and nourish my spirit. I reconnected with a couple friends, but began to feel a bit of sharp pain from the realization that what I thought was my home now felt quite different. Of course, I didn't have my former friends from the church anymore. I knew that. But coming back reminded me and magnified once again the pain of that loss. I felt it again rushing back in. I also awoke to the fact that even though I knew my mom's stance on shunning me, somewhere inside me, unconsciously, I had thought maybe she might bend the rules now that so much time had passed and since I was back home. When she didn't, it hurt all over again. After several weeks, I was getting no leads on jobs yet. I couldn't find a house that I liked that wouldn't break the bank. I was getting cold feet. Again, I thought that because I was doing what I really wanted for the first time in my life, that things would just kind of fall into place, but they didn't. I started to doubt this move. I couldn't believe it, but I was thinking about going back to Oregon. I was getting depressed at the thought of being in California and being broke or struggling to make ends meet. Even if I landed a great job or if my design business would take off, I would have to make a ton of money consistently to be comfortable here. I didn't want to have financial stress. The whole purpose of coming here was to create the life of my dreams. I knew I could manage expenses in Oregon much easier. I missed my daughter and wished we could be closer to her. The thought of going back to Oregon was not thrilling me, but I thought maybe I should consider moving farther up the Oregon coast, closer to where Lexi was, and see what that was like. I had heard great things about Astoria and Cannon Beach. It would be a new adventure. My son thought I was crazy. He was right. That's not in there. But he really didn't mind the idea of going back. San Clemente wasn't what his memory had envisioned anymore either. I gave it time. I stayed for several weeks. I really struggled with the fact that I had indeed listened to my intuition to make this big move back, and it seemed like it was the wrong move. Self-doubt wanted to move in and take over my thoughts. Was my intuition broken? Did I suck at listening to it? Or was all that just bullshit? Should I just be more pragmatic and base my decisions on financial realities alone? I was so confused. It's so disheartening when you think you've learned so much, when you think you've got things figured out, only to find that you feel completely lost. I meditate daily, but in my colossal confusion, I needed to dig deeper, to take more time to be still, meditate longer and more often, and be as closely in touch with my inner voice or higher self as I could. When I did this, the fog began to clear. It was going to be okay. I had made a decision, and it changed many things in my life. It was dramatic and sweeping, but that didn't mean I had to stick to it once I discovered it wasn't right for me or my son. But it kind of felt like I had failed. I felt embarrassed. I didn't want my dad or anyone else to think I was stupid or making poor decisions. This thought made me angry. Then I asked myself, "You are 52 years old, Jill. Why do you care what your dad or anyone else thinks about your decision? It is your life. Do what feels right for you." I tried to view this big move as if it was a beta test. I had to try it. And not for nothing, I learned so much from this excursion. The situation made clear something I had not quite figured out. It had to do with my parents. I knew my dad loved me, but I kept trying to get his approval. I wanted him to think I was a smart person, that I was a good mother to my kids, that I could take care of myself. Why? Why did I need that? I know when my dad moved away when I was a little kid, I felt like it was really hard to get any attention from him. Divorce does that. I think I had always strived to do something to get his attention and praise, whether I was 12 years old or 52. Then, when I lost my mom, unconsciously put even more pressure on myself to please Dad. He was now my only parent. My relationship with him took center stage. Sharing a business with him added to that. I had to strike out on my own to separate that out. I didn't have to have Dad's approval. All I needed was his love. I knew I had that. Spending the last couple years working side by side with him had made that abundantly clear. I was going to work at releasing the need to please anyone. I needed to practice doing as I saw fit for myself, for my life, without eternally being swayed by what other people thought, even the most important people. I was just about to get another gnarly firsthand lesson in that. So that finishes up that chapter. Let's see, was I going to, yeah, we're going to stop there. So this is, it's not fun to read this part because it just felt like, once I, went through the whole process of kind of learning how to listen to my own voice and that it was okay for me to figure things out on my own. Man, I changed my mind about 1,000,000 times. And, my sister said something to me one time, when you're in the church for that long a time and then you go out on your own, it's like being an adolescent in a way. Again, it's like being a kid. It's like just graduating high school and going, okay, go out and find a life and figure it out. And so learning how to be really easy on myself about that. Yeah, sometimes I really thought I knew what I wanted. And then it was like, well, that's not it. And that's not it. And there was like all this like weird humiliation and shame going on. And I'm so glad I don't feel that anymore. But it's kind of embarrassing as I'm reading it because it's like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? But again, I think we all have stuff like that in our life, different forms of that, but where it's so easy to be hard on ourselves and just kind of rake ourselves over the coal with not getting it right. And so I go back to the whole thing of, being kind to yourself, being understanding with yourself. I mean, if you can master the idea of being as good to yourself as you would be to the people that you love the most, it's the best gift you can give yourself. It gives you so much freedom. So when I see you next time, we will be starting on chapter 46 and see what happens when I leave California. Okay, take care. Have a good day.